You get to remove the old plasma and then you replace with a healthy biologic cocktail of all the good stuff. I use that for skin rejuvenation in a natural way, for hair restoration, for sexual optimization, and it's amazing for joint health.
Dr. Con Wend here with me today. She's a regenerative and anti-aging physician. She's board certified in internal medicine, fellowship trained in critical care, and additionally board certified in aesthetics and anti-aging medicine. She completed the SSRP fellowship in peptide therapy and cellular medicine.
GLP-1, GIP, an effective weight loss peptide. It can reduce overall mortality by 14%. It's shown to reduce the major cause of heart disease by 26%. And for sure, it improves cognitive decline. A miracle peptide if used correctly. Quality of the peptide is very important. One of my favorite peptides, diamorphin alpha-1, very effective immune modulator. It can enhance your immune system or it can tame it down when it's overactive.
On TikTok, people are saying that by doing microneedling, it's creating scar tissue.
There are people that having that done by non-physician or even non-healthcare related providers. If it's done right, it's amazing.
All right, so I'm so excited to have Dr. Con Wend here with me today. And actually, she's one of my doctors here in Austin, Texas. She's a regenerative and anti-aging physician based here. And she's the founder of Austin Regenerative Therapy. She's board certified in internal medicine, fellowship trained in critical care, and additionally board certified in aesthetics and anti-aging medicine from A4M. She completed the SSRP fellowship in peptide therapy and cellular medicine, and her clinic focuses on advanced interventions, including therapeutic plasma exchange, which I have done, young plasma exchange, which I'm going to be doing, and you have done, and we'll talk about it. Peptides and year-long peptide protocols, which I can't wait to talk about. V-cells are very small embryonic-like stem cell-based procedures, exosomes, RF-based regenerative aesthetics, and comprehensive functional testing. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah.
We're doing this.
It's such a pleasure to have you on. And, I've gotten so many questions, so we're going to dive into all the things. I love, you really take a very comprehensive approach, but you're also at the same time really pushing, forward for some of these innovative treatments. So let's kind of start with some of more of, we'll say, the basic stuff in this space. How did you get interested in this sort of medicine? And tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah. So I started out being trained in the traditional medicine, as you mentioned, internal medicine and critical care medicine. So I spent a decade in the hospital setting, ICU setting. I have the privilege of taking care of many, many, many patients. And what I've noticed is that we are able to keep people alive longer. However, they keep on coming back thicker, with a longer list of medications, with more procedure added on. So the quality of life is not there. And then I faced my own challenge when after years of working hard, I fell asleep driving home after one night shift. And
Goodness.
luckily, I didn't get hurt. Nobody got hurt. But it was a wake-up call. So I had to stop and dig deeper. And instead of asking what was the diagnosis, which, by the way, I was shortly diagnosed with Graves' disease. And I was almost in like thyroid storm, which is very dangerous. So instead of asking what was the diagnosis, I dig deeper and asking why was my body attacking myself? And that journey led me to discover functional medicine, regenerative medicine, and cellular medicine. And I learned so much that was not taught in medical school, and I healed myself. And beyond that, I'm feeling much better now than in my 30s. And then I was also able to help my son, who was diagnosed with autism, but then he was missed the diagnosis of Moyamoya disease, which I follow my intuition, and as a mom, we discovered that. So, it's been a long journey. I got introduced to stem cell therapy very early on, 20 years ago. And so everything happened for a reason, but that's kind of how it led me to this. And I see firsthand, I experience myself how effective it is and how there's a major shift from feeling smart, getting the diagnosis, and then trying to give medication to suppress symptoms and more medication to treat side effects, and then procedure and just, instead of going after the root causes of diseases, inflammation, chronic stress, even poor sleep and poor nutrition, even that foundation were not taught in medical school. And it was just life-changing. And since I've been doing the same thing for hundreds of my patients, I opened a private practice, and it's been so much fun to see transformative result in my patient. And the fundamental is a multimodal approach with the foundation based on really optimizing lifestyle, sleep, nutrition, exercise, stress management, and then love and connection, having fun. And then on top of that, then I'm a big fan of hormone optimization. And on top of that, we do advanced peptide protocol, and not just using one peptide for one thing, but beyond that, how to create a protocol to really address the individual first with the acute symptoms, and then we move on from there to address all the various hallmarks of aging, and that's how we really go after the root cause of disease. And aging is the biggest risk factor for all the major illnesses, right? And so I think that there's no magic. I think the body is very intelligent, and it's like interconnected of multiple systems. They all talk to each other, so you can't really isolate. You don't just address one hallmark of aging. You don't want just to do how to treat the kidneys or the brain or the heart, but they all have the common root causes. So really, there's no secret, but just to learn to appreciate the body, and it's all about how to give back the cells that homeostasis, give back that flexibility, that adaptability of the cells so that they can thrive because they know what to do.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I love your approach so much because there's also clinics out there that offer interesting services, right? But they're not also reinforcing the lifestyle component, because you and I have had multiple conversations about this. It's so important. Number one, the treatment's going to work better. Right. Number two, you're going to have long-term results, right? And number three, you have to. You can have all the money in the world and you can be able to afford these treatments, but if you don't change your lifestyle habits, you're still going, at 100 miles down the wrong road, right?
Exactly. And I think if anything, lifestyle is the foundation.
Yeah.
So I would say a lot of advanced services that we provide, they're great, but they really to enhance the benefit of lifestyle, of food, of exercise, movement, sleep.
I mean, it's like, I often use like a kind of a car analogy, right? Like if you had only one car, you would treat it so well, right? But if you are applying a really advanced therapy onto, an old broken down car, you might be putting a new coat of paint on it, but you're not like fixing the dents and the erosion or the rust or whatever. Like you got to do all that. And then it's like layering on this beautiful new coat of paint, and then it's perfection. So.
And not just cover up.
Exactly. I love that. Well, you mentioned a few different types of medicine that you've been trained in. Can we just kind of parse out what those are? So you mentioned functional medicine, integrative or anti-aging medicine, I think, and then cell medicine. How do those differ and where are the similarities?
Right. So I started out with functional medicine with A4M, and the basic. That's really how we shift from treating symptoms to going after the root causes. And the foundation is lifestyle optimization, and we learn to appreciate food and microbiomes and all the functional tests to really find out what's going on with the body. When somebody come in, I have brain fog, I can't concentrate, we don't go there first, right? We look at the microbiome.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the foundation. What's the root cause? What's the common feature that multiple chronic condition share? And hormone optimization is part of that. And then in terms of regenerative medicine, that's when we use PRP, exosome, V cell, various biologic stem cell services and procedure. And then cellular medicine is kind of an overlap, but that's when I learn all about various pathways in the cells and how to address all the faulty pathway in order to optimize health using, again, lifestyle optimization, peptide therapy, and we combine to
Got it.
really how to optimize the mitochondrial function, how to help the microbiomes, how to optimize the DNA replication processes.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into first. We'll talk about therapeutic plasma exchange (TPE), and then we'll go into young plasma. So, would you just define what this is? And everyone, I feel like people do it in a bit of a different way. Some
Right.
people remove all the plasma.
Right.
Some people don't.
Right.
So maybe
Right.
talk about the way you do it as well, and kind of what benefits you're seeing, and also even maybe some labs that you are looking at.
Yeah. So TPE stands for therapeutic plasma exchange. So that means that you remove the plasma and you exchange with something.
Yeah.
And in clinical practice, TPE typically means you remove plasma and then you replace with IV fluid and albumin,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the reason that we do that is, well, let's talk about what's included in blood. So in whole blood, we have red blood cells that carry oxygen. We have white blood cell count to fight infection. And then we have platelets for mainly clotting factors, but they have various growth factor in there. And then the liquid part is plasma. So that is about 52 to 55% of whole blood
Mm-hmm.
is plasma. And in plasma, the majority of that is fluid. However, a fraction of that is where the magic happens. For young people in plasma, there's various, it's a combination of hormones, proteins, exosome. So it's kind of like a perfect mixture of all the thing that is needed for the cell, for the body to function optimally. However, with various condition, with time, aging, autoimmune condition, what happened? We accumulate a lot of autoantibodies, inflammatory byproducts, microplastic, various mold, all the senescence byproducts. And that's when we remove that, it's kind of taking the trash out or removing the dirty oil from the car,
Yeah.
right? And even doing that alone, the body has the ability to make new plasma. So when we remove old plasma and we replace with albumin, it's just to hold space, and then waiting for the body to make new fresh plasma.
How long does it take the body to make the new plasma?
A day or two.
Yeah, I thought it was about 24 to 48 hours, right?
Yeah.
What was therapeutic? Because therapeutic plasma exchange has been used in hospitals for.
So it's been going on for a long time, and it's FDA approved for a long list of conditions, mostly autoimmune condition, you know, lupus, TTP, and so forth. And the plasma product itself, like the plasma infusion, that's been going on for 100 years or more.
Wow.
Right. So, but that's just plasma in general. So in my years working in a hospital setting, ICU setting, when people are bleeding to death, that's what we ordered.
Yeah.
The-
Okay, more plasma.
Right. The fresh frozen plasma. But in that setting, it's a mixture of sex, male, female, and a mixture of age. And it turned out the average age of the plasma donor is like 40 or 50s.
Interesting. Yeah.
That.
You had told me that before, and I was kind of shocked because I thought it was going to be younger people
Right.
trying to like make money. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
You know, one of the biggest findings, so when I first did TPE actually in LA, I had obviously had the fires. And for the first time in my life, my TPO antibodies started to increase. They've always been non-detectable. And I did a test and they were 12, and then I did another test and they were 20.
Yeah.
And I had a therapeutic plasma exchange in LA, and then they dropped back down to 0.
Yeah.
And because I simultaneously was doing sauna and glutathione and detox and all this stuff,
Right.
they've just stayed there. So they've never crept up again. But I found that to be, I mean, you know, obviously I was moving towards developing an autoimmune condition.
Right.
And I loved that that was able to do that, in addition to obviously, you know, making a substantial dent in reducing all of the toxins that I had been exposed to. So,
Right. And actually recently, in May of this year, the Buck Institute finally released a study where they did TPE
Yep.
alone or nothing, or TPE plus IVIG, which is the immunoglobulin, which is part of plasma. And it turned out the group with TPE plus IVIG, after 3 sessions, they had like a 2.6 age of years reversal.
So 3 sessions.
Yeah.
What happened with just the TPE group?
There's an improvement, but not as much.
Was it David Furman who did that study? Do you recall?
The May of 2025 in the Bucks Institute.
Yeah, I wonder. I think that's where my friend David Furman is, and he's really into TPE. So, yeah, I'm actually speaking at the Buck Institute next week.
Okay.
So yeah,
So
I love that.
huge. That's
yeah,
huge.
that's amazing.
And I mentioned that because, you know, that is another proof that, you know, we always been fascinated with blood, you know, but it turned out it's the plasma that has, you know, either the bad stuff or all the healthy stuff that the body needs.
Yeah.
And so IVIG is from a mixture of donors, sex and age. And imagine if you use plasma with a complete mixture. It's like a biologic perfect cocktail from young donors.
Yeah.
Even, you know, better. So it's kind of like an indirect way to me that young plasma is another proof that has a lot of benefit. And, you know, you mentioned young plasma exchange protocol. So this is based on the Golden Gift study under Dr. Diane Ginsburg as the principal investigator, and Will, one of the co-investigator. And this study it started in 2018. And the protocol is we remove 2 liters and then we give back 2 liters of young plasma.
Yeah.
So this is the plasma from young donor aged 18 to 25 and it's sex specific.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I'm sure that will raise some questions. So how are you getting the plasma?
Right. So we are getting the product from Spectrum Plasma, and they obviously it's a very strict screening process. However, even for most plasma donation center, the process has been around for a long time, and the safety is well established.
Yeah.
But this is like they've gone beyond that, and they screen the donors, and age 18 to 25 is kind of like the peak for human performance, and it's sex specific.
Yeah.
And then we go by blood type specific as well. And then once the plasma is being collected, it's gonna be screened, and we're gonna sit and wait for the culture to be clear before that get released.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so important. I mean, you and I have had, pretty extensive conversations about this because obviously, when someone like me is thinking about doing it, I just turned 35, so it's not like my plasma is old and I'm so healthy. So, it's like everything is we're weighing risk versus reward. But I mean, for sure, I think, TPE for sure, removing a lot of that for any age, really. I mean, not any age, maybe not a teenager, but, our worlds are just so polluted. It's like if I have toxins and I do everything, I'll show you around my house. I mean, everything is like thought down to the most meticulous level. It's like sometimes you just get exposures and you can't do anything about it. So I mean, obviously for TP, any age, would be a good if you have chronic disease or you have high levels of toxins. And we can measure these things, so we don't have to just guess. But in terms of like young plasma exchange, what age do you think would be a good age to start thinking about that?
So I really think it's depending on the individual, right? So if you are 28 and you are unhealthy and you have symptoms and you have autoimmune condition, and now we can test in the blood for all the toxin.
Yeah.
And so if that's the case, that will be helpful.
Yeah.
Right? If you're 50 and you're healthy and you feel great, young plasma exchange would definitely be helpful as well. But on top of that, if you have other symptoms, if you have a heavy load of inflammation, of toxic burden, then that would be even more helpful.
Yeah.
And we've done, the oldest patient that I did was 82, 83.
Okay.
Yeah. And he well tolerated. He just bounced out of bed and, skipping, running around.
I love that.
Yeah.
What are some of the labs that we can look at or that you look at in your clinic for, improvements? Obviously, self-reporting is huge, but what else are you looking at?
We look at the basic, like the high sensitivity CRP. We look at hemoglobin A1C, the fasting insulin, homocysteine levels. So those are like for inflammation. And then, tumor necrosis factor alpha, the interleukin family.
Yeah.
As we do that as a baseline in terms of blood work.
Yeah.
And then we also do a biological age test along with the body composition. And then we do the balance test. We do the MOCA test to check for the memory cognition.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Good at that.
And I'm excited because I'm bringing in the quantitative EEG and TMS.
Nice.
So I was going to implement that as well.
I love that.
And look at the pre-YPE treatment to look at the mapping of the brain function. And then what happened afterwards, I don't know, but
yeah, that's great.
I think that's going to be interesting to see.
What markers do you typically see shift the most, and after like how many sessions?
Yeah, so I only have 3 or 4 patients that have more than one round. So, and I'm collecting data, so it'll be very interesting to see. But what we see is improvement in lipid profile, hemoglobin A1C, definitely the inflammation markers. Now, to be fair, we have patients that with a baseline of very decent blood work. So the pulse, we don't see a difference, but everyone report really improvement in functional capacity, energy level, and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so important. I mean, that's kind of how it is with me too. I mean, when you have, a 0.02, HSCRP, like,
Right.
well,
Right.
you're not really going to do much on that, I'm curious, what is a thought that I just had? So I genetically have a higher LP little a. It's not
Right.
crazy,
Right.
but are we seeing any shifts in LP little a?
So that I'll be able to tell you shortly because
Okay.
we are collecting data right
Yeah.
now. And not from young plasma exchange,
Yeah.
but from looking at my patient, because heart disease is number one cause of death,
Yeah.
even globally. And LP(a) and apolipoprotein B, we track, we measure, and we optimize. And it turned out when we're trying to improve ApoB, LP(a) get improved. And even like medication like Repatha, if people needed it due to high risk factor, that does indirectly, there's some improvement in LP(a). And sometimes even we don't use that, I use high dose omega-3 and a supplement called citronol. And we see an improvement in that. And I know that they are working on a medication that directly, because as of now we don't have anything to lower that. So
Does Repatha just focus on ApoB, or does it lower all lipids?
it lower all lipid,
Lower all
but the bottom line is the ApoB. So
is lower. Yeah.
that's my target, and it's very well tolerated. I don't use that on all patients. It's just depending on their genetics and symptoms and risk factor and the level.
Yeah.
But I'm very impressed. Even after one shot, and we just happen to repeat the blood work because they do for the quarterly blood work, we see a big drop even after one injection.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Like what's the
And
range?
it's well tolerated. It would drop from like 110 to 60.
Wow. Great.
No, it's like crazy.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll have to have a sidebar conversation about that. Warren has a great LP(a). It's just for anyone listening, it's a genetic marker that, please correct me if I'm wrong, but obviously like my triglycerides, everything is perfect, but it's like diet is perfect, but it just kind of, and it tracks with my family history. But it's interesting because men in my family die from cardiovascular disease, but women don't. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have to chat about it.
So, we look at the risk factors for heart disease, right? And the good news is, yes, it's a top cause of death, but at the same time, we're really good and we have a lot of tools to reverse all of that.
Yeah.
So you're not stuck with the death sentence.
Yeah.
But knowing your risk, and then you can be aggressive and you can really track and control and reverse those risk factors.
Yeah. And I think this is a bit of a sidebar from what we're going to be talking about, but I think it's an important conversation because the health industry has gotten like, there's two sides, right? Like there's a side of people that think pharmaceuticals have no place, right? And everything has to be natural and cholesterol. I'm not that person. I think that, I'm not currently on any pharmaceuticals outside of LDN, which, I've been on and off for like 5 or 6 years. Yeah, which you love, great for like inflammation, things of that nature, very low dose overall, but that's like an elective kind of pharmaceutical, but I'm very much so in the middle of science. Like I want to do whatever it is that I need to do to be the healthiest for longest. So
there's a place, antibiotics save life, period.
Of course, yeah.
Right? And ultimately, surgery save life if you need that.
Yeah.
So, just knowing your risks and knowing your symptoms and knowing your options.
Yeah.
And yes, you can try everything first, like the natural way, even the foundation, even the foods you eat.
Yeah.
Play a big role.
Totally.
And then on top of that, if you need to, then I'm not against it.
Yeah.
At all. Even, I'm on low dose aspirin daily
Yeah.
because there's a lot of data proving multiple benefits.
Mhm.
So
Mostly as it relates to cardiovascular, right?
cardiovascular, blood clots,
Maybe
brain
brain
function,
health. Yeah, because the
function,
blood
yeah.
is like a bit
Right,
thinner.
right,
Yeah, that makes
right.
sense.
And yeah, it's just multiple pathway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. It's like I think we live in an amazing time where we have a lot of tools. So let's use all of the tools, you know,
Right,
if we
right,
need them. So,
right. Just as long as we measure and
yes.
track, and you know, I have kind of like two group of patients. One group, they want to try one thing at a time and see what happens.
Mhm.
And then the other group, they're like, I don't have time to waste. I want to be aggressive and do everything.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
You have to educate and communicate with the patient.
Mm-hmm.
I think to me it's very important to partner with my patient and decide together.
Yeah.
And everyone have different style. There's no right or wrong. And as long as they understand and they know the options, and then we measure and we track, and then we retrack, we adjust if needed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so important. I mean, definitely get the data, understand your risk first, get the data, and then, you know, work with your doctor to make, you know, an intervention.
Right.
The unfortunate part is that doctors like you are not walking around all over.
Right.
So it's very difficult for a lot of listeners, even on this podcast, to find someone that's going to listen to them, you know, but so, I guess you guys are.
Yeah, so talking about medication, we all, you know, statin has a bad reputation for good reason because there's multiple side effects. But at the same time, you know, it's cheap and it does work. And if you can tolerate it and if you can't afford other means, that is an option. And, you know, and we just have to use the lowest dose and track to see if the patient can tolerate.
Yeah.
So it's all about risk benefit and measure
agree.
and see.
I agree with that. Okay, so we talked about therapeutic plasma exchange, like who it could be for. I mean, the one question I do have is, do we think we're ever going to see it come down in price?
That's the hope.
Yeah.
Right? And really, you know, right now, my patients are the lucky, you know, group of people that can afford. And from a physician standpoint, I have a lot of tools, a lot of toys, and to be able to apply and use everything, use the latest, and see the outcome is really fun for me.
Yeah.
But it would be amazing when we can bring that to the mass, you know, for people that need it. And I can see that you know that can happen. Hopefully with the change in regulation.
Yeah.
To make it easier.
Yeah. And by the way, anyone that is listening, if you are interested in doing young plasma exchange, I mean, literally, you're one of the only people in the country doing it. Not only do I think you're the best, but, you know, Texas is one of the only states where it's even able to be done. So if anyone is interested, of course, we'll include all of her details and the clinic and everything. And I'm there all the time, so maybe you'll run into me while you're doing your young plasma exchange.
And I have to add, in terms of TPE versus young plasma exchange, and then there's people that just get young plasma infusion. The full young plasma exchange to me is the best. You get to remove the old plasma, and then you replace with a healthy biologic cocktail of all the good stuff. And even when people are considering other modalities, including stem cell, exosome, what have you, I think to remove your plasma first play a great role. For everything else to work better. And then the other thing that I add is that young plasma exchange, it has to be done under skilled physician that really understand and know how to manage the volume shift, you know, especially in older patient. It is safe, it is well tolerated, it's proven by many study. However, it has to be done right, in the right condition, under the trained physician and staff. And then the other thing that I want to add is, again, is that multimodal approach. So a lot of time, I would educate and I would add peptide protocol to the mix and many other things. I love young plasma. I use that, as you already familiar with, for skin rejuvenation, natural way, for hair restoration, for sexual optimization, and it's amazing for joint health. So for joint injection. So it's
Well, before we get into peptides then, because I'm excited for you to share like kind of how you approach peptides. Let's talk about some skin rejuvenation things.
Yeah.
So I had salmon sperm, right?
right.
The microneedling,
Right.
exosomes. You call this the vampire facelift, but
Right.
talk a little bit about,
Yeah.
because this is what I'm most interested in exploring, right? So I did Botox before. I haven't done Botox in like 8 months now or something. So I'm excited to see what's possible with a lot of the stuff that we're doing in these regenerative treatments. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I love making people healthy, but aesthetic is very important to me.
Yeah.
And it turned out, when you look at yourself in the mirror, if you like what you look, doesn't matter how you really look. But if you're happy with how you look, you actually will live longer, right?
Yeah.
And I must say, beauty, skin health start from within. And we all know that. Your gut health, your nutrition, your sleep, we have to work there. And optimizing hormone is all important. And then that's when the topical, the procedure will get us to the next level. And I think that because now we are able to get people to remain very healthy, very functional to 90s and more, it's important that we enjoy how we look.
Yeah.
It's not really vanity. It's just, I think that you have to respect yourself enough to, to look as good as you can.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right? And so with the different option that we use, microneedling in itself is just by creating multiple channels, we create micro trauma and it turn on the repair mechanism. So that alone is great.
Yeah.
And at the surface level, it's kind of like, tighten the pores and make the skin healthier, get rid of the top layer, the dead cells layers. And then when you apply like PRP or better yet exosome, that is taking that to the next level. With now you create, it's kind of like you prepare the soil and now you put in the growth factor.
Yeah.
Right. So that will stimulate more microcirculation, the healthier collagen. And then the salmon sperm DNA is another option to actually also stimulate new collagen, more microcirculation, and therefore better nutrition to the skin. And in fact, I just had another round of salmon sperm and young plasma last week.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to, if you don't want to, we don't have to tell, but do you want to share your age? Because you look amazing.
Yeah, so I'm 58.
Yeah. I mean,
but it's just a number, right?
Yeah.
I don't feel 58. And I think that we can't change the fact that we are adding more days to our, age. But we don't have to accept all the declines that come with age. We can defy that. And it's not just fantasy. I mean, the way it is, we already have so many options to slow down aging and even reverse, right?
Yeah.
So, and with health, with different markers, with the joints and metabolic health and brain function, and then same thing for the skin.
Yeah.
Right? We, by addressing all the things that we talk about, from inside and then out with injection, microneedling, and then energy-based therapy such as radio frequency microneedling as well.
Yeah.
And then there's like a whole series of different laser option which I don't do, but that is another way. Now, ultimately, when people wanted to have a facelift, I think it's your decision, it's your choice. I'm not against it, but knowing that even when you have a facelift, you still need to take care of the quality of your skin and not just to remove the excess skin, right? It's
Yeah.
important to have that glow, healthy skin.
Yeah.
And actually, that's what beautiful skin is, that glowy, healthy appearance.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. There's like kind of a new, I guess, I think is a myth probably going on social media, but they're saying that like on TikTok, people are saying that by doing microneedling, it's creating scar tissue. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, so I've been doing this since the beginning of microneedling, and I've done that myself multiple times. I think it comes down to understanding and being well trained,
Yeah.
because there are people that having that done by non-physician or even non-healthcare related providers. Then that's a different story, and the quality of the device and the depth, right? So
Matters.
you have to know what you're doing, and no, that's not correct. If it's done right, it's amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've had
Very
great
effective.
results. Yeah,
Yes.
I've had incredible results.
Yes.
But someone just asked me this the other day. So,
So I think that might be, if you use a poor device and causing scratching or the wrong depth, maybe, I don't know.
yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
That makes sense.
Right.
I think, when we do some filming for France, we are going to try some biofiller, right?
Yes.
Tell me about that. I'm so
I'm
excited.
excited about that. So it's just using PRP, which is platelet-rich plasma.
Mhm.
It's loaded in growth factors. The body is fascinating.
It's so crazy.
That PRP is spin in a special way, and then it get heated and it turn into a gel.
Amazing.
And so now when we inject that into the skin, it will stay there at first to create volume, but in a natural way, and then
Yeah.
it at the same time stimulate
Amazing.
regeneration.
So all natural. We'll draw my own blood,
Right.
spin it, and then
Right.
yeah, amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
So I'm excited. I'm always on the lookout for new things, and if it makes sense, if it's science-based, I try it on me first.
There you go.
I'm always the first. I'm always the first patient.
Yeah.
So for everything that we do.
Yeah, I love that. And most of my audience is obviously female, but also we're going to be maybe exploring some fun stuff with my husband because
Yeah.
we know that
Yeah.
probably a lot of wives
Right.
also want their husbands to be
Right.
like,
Right.
equally doing and investing and
The good news is that there's a trend for men to pay attention to how they look, and it's
Yeah.
about time. It's great for
Yeah.
us, right? Because we spend time looking
effort,
good,
money.
right?
Um,
And now the men stepping up, and it's I love it. I love it, and I see a lot of men in my clinic, even young in their 30s, to come in and be proactive about the hair, skin, and sexual
Yeah.
function. Like, don't wait for real ED. It's
Yeah.
not something that you wait until you much older. You can always improve and optimize it.
Yeah. And now men are doing, and you guys do this at your clinic, right? The like Botox injections in the penis. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so for sexual optimization procedure, we inject with different options of growth factor like PRP, and but then we also have the option of using neurotoxin. And the way it works is that just like Botox for the skin, Botox relaxes the smooth muscle
Mm-hmm.
on all of the blood vessel.
Mm.
So it's like you open the gate. And erection is all about blood flow, right?
Yeah.
So when you have Botox, it's just like for wrinkle, 3 to 7 days, you're gonna see.
Yeah.
You're gonna see stronger erection.
Mm.
And beyond that, Botox also migrate to the nerve bundles, and it also improves sensitivity as
Oh,
well.
wow.
And the fun part is at rest, Botox allow the shaft to appear longer. And
Men are
so
gonna love
men that just love walking around big. So yeah, so it's a fun thing, and a lot of time we combine. So Botox will give it a week, and then there it is, and then 3 to 9 months, then it's done. It doesn't do anything to improve the actual health of the tissue.
Yeah.
That's where we use the P shot. That's when we use PRP and or young plasma.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but also even going back to like the premise that we were talking about looking good, right? Like feeling good for men. And I mean, I don't even know, what are the rates of ED? I feel like they're super high.
It's super high.
Yeah.
It's super high, and it's like like 40% for men in the 40s.
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean,
And it's not something to be embarrassed about.
yeah.
For us women, we appreciate it when men do everything to be proactive and to improve the function. And for female, the equivalent of the P shot is the O shot, and it's based on the same principle.
Yeah.
To inject PRP around the G-spot and into the clitoris to improve the health of the tissue, to improve lubrication, tightness, and sensitivity.
Yeah.
So I have to say, men's are more eager to have that done, and we have more men than women. I think women's more prone to improve the skin and the hair, and it's something that I educate my patient that, hey, you don't have to accept the age and hormone related decline.
Yeah.
It's very sexual health is also related to health itself. So it's important to address that.
Yeah. I mean,
And we have great solution, and
yeah, I love that.
it's working.
Hyperbaric can be pretty good for ED too.
Yeah.
I mean, and of course, obviously improving lifestyle, right?
Yep.
Anything that improves.
Right. Yeah. So I have a biohacking room at my house, and my office, we have a bunch of modality as well. So when you combine everything,
Yeah, I mean,
right.
it's like the sky's the limit.
right.
You know?
And do you have to do everything? No. But should you? Yes.
Yeah, if you can, why not?
Right.
Right. I mean, we get one body. Like, that's all.
Right.
And for me, it's like so many women, like it's like a trend to want a Birkin or something. Like, I would rather buy this than, because what's that going to do for me in the long run? And I'm not saying that I don't have nice things. I mean, I do, but
just prioritize.
It's prioritizing, right? Yeah, like we don't spend money on going out to dinners all the time or alcohol or like, so it's definitely, I love spending money on health and like investing in it, even the food, like.
And, I have to say, it's easy to be addicted to all of this because you do feel amazing.
You feel great, yeah.
You feel good. Like, I look forward to doing my sauna every day.
It's the best.
And
Me
then
too.
in the morning, like the minute I jump in the cold plunge, I'm like, this is what happiness is about. It's like instant, and I feel so good.
Yeah.
So it's not hard. Like, like if you go out drinking and you feel horrible the next day.
Yeah.
And these are the things that you feel so good.
Yeah, I agree.
And so it's not hard. And even eating healthy, eating good food, healthy food, you do feel better.
The best.
And
You feel
look
so
better.
good. Yeah.
And, now and then when I want to eat something bad, I'm like, wow, it's overrated.
Yeah.
My body kind of reject all the bad food, and it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. So it's just like a shift in mindset. And I think we're getting there because we currently celebrate with bad things, right? Like things that are harmful.
right,
Alcohol, huge meals, staying up late. Why is that a celebration?
right,
I think going to bed early and waking up in the morning and exercising is a celebration.
right,
So,
right,
I mean, yeah, we just got to change the mindset.
right.
So,
We just have to be intentional, create priorities, and I encourage all my patients. The first thing I ask is, how long you want to live?
yeah.
What kind of life you want to have when you're there?
Mhm.
And then work from here, like
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
You don't wait until you arrive at 80, 90. That's, it's never too late, but it's never too early to start, right?
Yeah.
Even when you super young,
Totally.
it's
mean-
never too early.
I agree.
And it's I think it's good that it's more and more trendy. The awareness is there. It's trendy to be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. It's a good trend.
Yeah.
And it's
I
good
love
for
it.
us, right?
Yeah.
I feel very fortunate that, we just happen to be kind of like the pioneer of all of this. But it's an exciting time to live in medicine
Yeah.
where we can really create true impact. And last week, a patient of mine, he's in his 70s, and he told me, he's like, "Doctor, I just wanted you to know, you really changed the trajectory of my life. And I really thank you for that." And that's what get me going. It's just really, really rewarding.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
I when I was running my clinic, I just got to see so many people turn their lives around, and
Yeah.
I still get to see it all the time. So it's so incredible to just. I mean, what better gift can you give someone than health?
Right, right. And even like during COVID, at the time, my older son, he was in college at UT, and suddenly they got isolated. And he shared with me that his roommate got severely depressed, suicidal,
Wow.
right? And then he then let me know. He's like, "Mom, we listened to you and we stopped eating bad. We started to go shopping and cooking."
Mm-hmm.
And that alone, like his roommate changed completely.
Good.
And just the food and just the going to bed earlier.
Yeah. I mean, and getting out and doing something and then preparing a healthy meal for yourself, it's like rewarding, so.
And they turn into enjoying cooking.
I love
And
that.
enjoying that with their friends. Right?
I love
so
that.
it's so we can have good influence on each other.
Yeah.
And change the mindset and change what is trendy or what is hip.
Yeah.
From something that is bad for you to something that can help us to be optimized and stay healthy longer.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right, last topic we're going to talk about peptides. So
My favorite.
I know it's so crazy because I've been doing peptides for so long that like feels like old news to me.
Yeah.
But it's not old news at all right now. It's like exploding. So
Right.
what are peptides and how do you kind of structure your peptide protocols?
Yeah. So the basic is peptides are small proteins, and they natural. We make peptides, right? And they have specific role or action in the body. And, they are under, one way to look at it is like under different category. There are peptides for the mitochondria. There's peptide for repair recovery. There's peptide for the growth hormone axis and so forth. Now most people are familiar enough with peptide.
Yeah.
But to really use peptides the right way and to truly appreciate the full potential and benefit, you have to be very intentional and very systematic about it. If you just use isolated peptides, yes, you can see result, but it's just kind of like so dark, blindfolded you might hit something, but you're not going to be able to optimize the whole system.
Yeah.
And so the way I use peptide is I start out with a very comprehensive look at the patient, including the biomarkers, genetics, symptoms, family history, and then we prioritize what's important. And it turned out the first step for most people is going to be addressing the immunometabolic function. So we need to optimize that first. And it's very important to follow the right sequence because you can get burned. You can get people, you can impress your patient and have them look great, but then if using that in the wrong sequence or dosage, you can get burned. So, establish the foundation. And then from there, what I do is I design a cycling phase peptide protocol to systematically address various hallmarks of aging. And it turned out most peptides can influence and address more than one hallmark of aging. And it's just how nature, right? It's all interconnected. But there's two big components or phases that I focus on and that is the cycling between the mTOR or the building phase, and then alternating with the AMPK recharge resting phase.
So for peptides for the building phase, that would be like a CJC apomorelin, maybe like a tesamorelin or a shirmorelin, shirmorelin in that family. And then what would be the AMPK?
Yeah, so with the mTOR phase, a lot of time I combine that with the repair peptides such as BPC, and then we cycle with thymosin beta 4. It just depends on individual. But we do that because for example, BPC, it's great for repair, recovery, speed up recovery post-workout. But it also stimulate more receptor for growth factor. So it allow CJC or tesamorelin to be even more effective, right?
Great.
So then when we and we want to cycle so that we don't downregulate the receptor and make it less effective. And then so typically up to 3 months of that. And then at least we take a month to work on mitochondria function like SS31 or MUSC or 5-amino-1-MQ or humanin. And then a lot of time we go back to the building phase because as we get older, we all need to build muscle, and it is definitely harder. You know, it even to not lose muscle, you have to be intentional. Right. And so we really focus on cycling through the building phase to establish a good level of muscle. Because muscle is the organ for longevity. And then we cycling through as I mentioned, the mitochondrial peptide, and then we do various peptide for like senescent load or for the brain function.
What's your favorite peptide for senescent mode?
So it's a research peptide.
Okay.
But it's a FOXO4 TRI.
Yeah. Okay. FOXO4.
Yeah. And, and then we use a bunch of supplement for that as well. And so, as I said, it's a combination.
Most of the peptides, though, you get compounded like at a...
Oh, yeah. The quality of the peptide is very important.
Yeah.
It's the right dosage, the right sequence, when to do what is very important.
Yeah.
And then one of my favorite peptides, thymosin alpha 1.
Yeah.
I use that in multiple ways, but you never wrong to start that, and it's always a good thing to start with that to really, and it's a very effective immune modulator. So it can enhance your immune system or it can tame it down when it's overactive. Because a lot of time the body is trying to help out and it kind of get out of control and it's overactive. And the beauty of that is you can use the same peptide and it will know what to do.
Yeah.
It will signal the body to upregulate or downregulate.
Yeah. Well, I've been on, you put me on the TA1 and I haven't gotten sick. I've been all over the place, Australia, London, New York City, LA, planes like crazy. And I haven't gotten sick once. So,
And then for people with like really bad, chronic fatigue, it's life-changing.
oh, wow.
For people with horrible hay fever, which is common in Texas, it's life-changing. And then some people don't feel anything, but just knowing, like I never get sick.
Yeah.
But for sure, every time I travel for conferences, I pack that with me. I give myself a big dose, and then I bring that with me, and somehow I share with people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what a gift. What a gift. Well, anything else that you have to say on peptides?
So for all of my patients, doesn't matter what they want or need, there's always a peptide for them. And I really use peptide to enhance almost everything that I do.
Oh my God.
I'm a big fan. It's natural and it's effective. And it'd be a big miss to not talk about the miracle peptide that is commonly talked about, but also there's a lot of wrong, it's misunderstood. It's the GLP-1. GLP-1, GIP, is known for an effective weight loss peptide, but it's way beyond that, right? There's human study have shown that it can reduce overall mortality by 14%.
Wow.
It's shown to reduce the major cause of heart disease by 26%.
Wow.
That's huge.
What mechanism?
So it's various pathway. It's beyond like blood sugar control, but it reduces inflammation, and we know inflammation is the root cause of everything. And there's also evidence of improving the microbiome, and for sure, it improves cognitive decline. There's LEADER is one study. SELECT is another study showing improvement in slowing the progression of chronic kidney disease as well.
Does everything.
Yeah. So it's really a miracle peptide if used correctly. So, most of the time, most people come in with metabolic dysfunction, overweight, right? And so it definitely a very powerful tool to start out. But then I track and I educate patients to monitor their muscle mass, to eat enough protein, to work out. If you use that alone, you're going to lose weight. But to do that in the right way, you need to make sure that you don't lose muscle. And then the minute they lose muscle, we have the option of adding peptides such as CJC, ipamorelin, tesamorelin. The combination is amazing. And then you can go way lower, right, for other protection. You don't have to, but like if I have a patient with mainly neurodegenerative condition, dementia, GLP-1 is definitely in the toolbox for that. If I have a patient with heart disease, GLP-1 is in the toolbox for that. And so it's beyond weight loss.
And are those microdoses for those sorts of patients?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So we just need to know more study to know like exactly what dose, but the data is there. showing reduce in all-cause mortality,
It's amazing.
cardiovascular event, kidney function, microbiome. I mean, it's
Endless.
endless. Yeah. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's super exciting. I can't wait to see.
You know, myself, I do have genetic risk for heart disease. And so I am on a tiny dose. And yes, I need very
Like
low.
5?
Yeah, because otherwise I don't eat.
Yeah, that
And muscle is very important for me.
that happened to me too. You know, I did a small dose, like 5 units, and I was actually a little bit leaner then, and I was like, okay, I can't do this right now because you know I want to start trying to get pregnant at some point, and I don't want to lose. You know, I don't want to get too lean. So
absolutely. And the other thing about peptide is that it's not a one size fit all. And when we say protocol, it's not really a good word because it's something that it's very individualized. It's based on your symptoms, your biomarkers, your family history, what you're trying to achieve, right?
Or even like what, because I mean, I'm on 1 dose of the thymosin alpha when I'm at home, but then when I traveled, you know, we kind of amended the dosage. So yeah, it's so complex. I made this post the other day. I'll show it to you. I tagged you a bunch in it, but
you make amazing educational posts. I really love that.
Thank you. Well, I shared what peptides I'm on.
Yeah.
And I got so many. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments on this post, and everybody's asking, what dosage are you taking? How often? And I'm like, again, guys, you have to work with your medical provider to figure that out because it's all different and unique.
Right. And then, you know, for my patient, I always start low and then I watch. Right. And then I adjust. It's always good to start with that. And then I'm very aggressive, but cautiously aggressive. And again, you just have to measure, you have to track, you have to communicate with patient, you have to track, you have to let them know what to expect.
Yeah.
And I think putting patient in control and educating my patient is everything. You know, it's really huge. And I think being in control and actively deciding what to do for yourself, that alone is making everything more effective. It's that mindset.
Yeah. And then they can also give you better feedback because they know.
And I learn from my patient. I learn a lot every day from my patient, for sure.
Well,
right. And all of the things I do, all the peptide protocol, I learn by using them myself, playing around with peptides and seeing feedback from patient and the result.
Yeah.
It's a combination of that.
Yeah, I mean, this is all relatively, I mean, even though a lot of these, you know, exogenous molecules have been used for a long time, the number of people on them is it's exploded, right? So we're kind of like all navigating what's going on.
Right.
So.
And, you know, the hope is getting providers that use peptide to start doing more human clinical trial, you know.
Yeah.
It's harder, but it's doable.
Yeah.
So that just like we know BPC is powerful, it's effective, it's one of my favorite, but, you know, it would be great to have more data as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
It's really fun, and I'm so glad we're connected, and
I know.
there's so many fun projects that we can.
So many, I know.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
So I'm here in Austin, and my website is austinregion.com. And then, you know, you're interested, you can submit an intake form, and there's a phone number is there as well.
Perfect. And then social media, you have Austin Regenerative Therapy and then your own handles. So I'll make sure to tag those in the notes section. So thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. This is fun. It's really fun.